I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Human Design Podcast with me, your host, Emma Dunwoody. I'm a qualified master coach and human behaviour specialist, as well as being a qualified human design coach. And I work with clients every single day to answer the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? I also assist them to transition from the person they think they should be to the person they really are on the inside. I teach people how to actually live their design instead of just knowing it. And if this is something that you want to do too, well, stay tuned or reach out for private coaching or Human Design Unpacks, where I show you exactly how to live your design.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode. Today we have the next in our series of a day in the life, if you like, of each type. I've been so lucky to be able to share and so grateful to be able to share my team in this series, because we actually put on the most incredible team of coaches in HDX who are supporting all of our members and community in their human design journey. And I'm so excited to welcome our manifestor, Kerrie Campbell. Welcome.
Hey, Emma. Thanks so much for having me.
One of the things that from the first moment that we worked together, one of the things that always discombobulates me is because you've got an Aussie accent. You're Australian, but you're in the States, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It always just messes with me a little bit. I'm like, what? So let's just start by sharing your human design with the audience. That'd be great.
Yes. So I'm a 4/6 emotional manifestor.
So exciting. And I want to really start to talk about it. And in this series, what we want to sort of look at is the before and after almost. We want to talk about before you came to human design and maybe what drove you there. And then to talk about how life is now that you've integrated it, and maybe sharing a part of that journey of how you actually integrated it. So tell us a little bit about when you started your human design experiment. How long ago was that?
Yeah, so I really started, I guess I first heard about human design in the back end of 2018. That had been my year of really diving into some deeper inner work, self-development on this journey to seek some answers, I guess. And I immediately sort of resonated with some things in human design and just tried to go out and find out as much as possible. And throughout, I think it was 2019, I was learning more. I did multiple readings. I came across your podcast. I joined HDX. And what I can say from there is almost the rest is history. It has just been incredibly life-changing. Both human design and you, Emma, have literally changed my life in the last few years.
Thank you. Oh my God, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to be a part of this journey. Before we hit record, I was just saying how we've, been looking a lot at our audience recently, and a lot of HDXs. Yes, we have a lot of sort of new to human design, but we have so many leaders of leaders. We have these really incredible humans that want to have an impact in the world, and you're absolutely one of them. So it's so exciting to watch you grow and evolve and have a big impact in the world, which is so cool. So, okay, you started your human design experiment in the back end of 2018. What were the challenges that you were facing that human design felt like a solution to?
So I was in the corporate world at that stage. I'd worked in there for over about 20 years, and I had worked my way up the corporate ladder. So I was in a pretty senior role working for big global companies, very demanding career, raising 2 kids. You had mentioned I was originally from Australia, so moved for my career to the US, a lot of international travel. And I think I was just at 2 points, I was really, really burnt out. And we were just like, I was consistently facing more and more stress in these big roles, more and more change, a faster pace. And at that point, I was struggling with not understanding why I was so exhausted and feeling so burnt out and had increasing health issues happening to me. And then secondly, I think at that point I was starting to wonder what my true purpose was. And I really loved the role that I did. I was in kind of the same field in human resources for the whole time in my corporate career, but as you move further up the corporate ladder, you get further away from maybe the things that really fulfill you. And so there was something underneath that I kept, it just was that little ping of, what is your true purpose? You're here to have a bigger impact than what you're having. And that voice just kept growing and wouldn't really go away. And so I think that's why when I found human design, that is where I really connected to it. And I felt like that could be my answer for both of those big things that I was facing. And funnily enough, I actually want to say on the back end, I realized after learning more about human design, I was going through my Uranus opposition when I was questioning my purpose. And as we know, at that time, that really does lead us to questioning what our purpose is and what that deeper purpose is.
Yeah, I love that. Because I mean, I've actually, it's funny you say that, because that's when I found human design too. It was in my Uranus opposition. So I love that. And I think purpose is one of the biggest things for me personally and what we teach, because I really believe there's so many of us that feel that calling inside of us, and we're like, how do we get at it? How do we actually manifest it into reality? And I think that's a lot of the work that we do through human design, through HDX, through transformational human design. So it's super exciting. Now, the beautiful human that inspired this series, who reached out on Instagram, she's a manifestor herself, and she was like, I'd love to have this series, or at least I'd love to hear about how people live this. One of the things she was saying was, as a manifestor, like really trying to get her head around initiating. What does that mean? What does initiating actually mean? So do you want to talk us through what it means for you?
Yeah, definitely. So what's so interesting in my experience is I had to relearn how not to be a generator type and how to be a manifestor when I realized that's what I was. And obviously, I think some initiating came so naturally, and I initiated a lot of things in the work that I was doing and initiated fairly big projects and changes, but I was still very much responding a lot. And so through my experiment, I started playing around with really initiating. And as I got creative urges, creative downloads, thoughts would come to me, I really tuned into my intuition and had those thoughts that just would pop up and wouldn't go away. I knew they became things that I was supposed to initiate. And so I really started trying to listen to those and grab onto those. And as I got creative downloads or these urges would come to me, I would make sure I wrote them down and captured them, and then put them through my authority to make sure that they were the right things to be initiating. So it's
my God. Yeah, I bet. And that was so succinctly put. I think that is so beautiful. So the other question this beautiful person had is like, well, what happens when you initiate and it's not received? Did you have experiences like that where you would try to initiate something new, but it wasn't received?
Yeah, I definitely have, because I have transitioned out of the corporate world on this journey. One of the really big changes that I made into entrepreneurship and owning my own business. And so there are things that have come to me through my business that I have either initiated and didn't really quite get the response that I was hoping for or wanted. But when I think back on that, I probably was initiating, I was still, and we're always in our experiment, right? But I still was probably early in my experiment, and I probably wasn't really understanding just the other pieces that needed to come with that initiating, and really making sure that I had put it through my emotional wave, because I'm emotional authority and I have that splenic hit, which I used to move very quickly on, but now I've learned to slow it down and make sure that I've gone through my wave, just those little pieces. And so when I look back on where it maybe did fall flat, those are probably were the missing pieces, or I just moved too early.
Oh my God, I love that. And I think that this is the thing that, why the way we teach human design, the way we teach it, is because often when we learn our human design, we take the pieces apart and we're like, okay, I'm a manifestor, therefore I can initiate everything. No. We always have to have our final say through our authority. That's it. So And as you said, everything's an experiment. So it's about having this experiment. It's about, making the mistakes. It's about learning the lessons. It's about doing those things and going, okay, well, this is what it feels like in my body. So this is what I trust. And, for you, just sharing your emotional authority, like that things kind of need to slow down a bit. I think it's so incredibly important. So when you did first come to, and I feel like you've kind of already touched on this, but when you first discovered your authority and even your profile, and maybe you want to focus on one or the other, that's cool too. What came up for you? Like, was it all like, yay, this is amazing, it feels awesome? Or was it like, oh God, this is uncomfortable, or something in between?
Definitely the authority was that probably, oh, wow. On one hand, it really made sense and explained some other things. On the other hand, it's like, how do I now use this? I feel like, particularly being emotional, the way that I grew up, the industries that I went into, I very much repressed my emotions. And so I've spent the last few years learning how to allow them and feel them again, which has been part of that, really learning how to use my authority in the way that I need to. And the other thing that throws me still is, as an emotional authority, we're never 100% sure. So then leaning into trusting that we just have to get about 80% of the way there and go with it. And so that has definitely been where I've put a lot of my focus, and really honing the authority and understanding it and trying to learn how it works. The profile, I feel like, really resonated with me. The 4-6, I'm like, yes, this actually describes me so well. I think it probably was one of the things that resonated the most.
I love that. I love that. And it's interesting that with the emotional authority, being emotional myself, like it's fascinating how I've really reflected recently on how much it's more important that I trust myself than I have clarity in, what I call inverted commas, or whatever that's called. Because, my body's telling me. So if I can learn to respond to what my body is telling me, and then, I still feel that gap of maybe clarity, that's okay, that that it's still it's still heading in the right direction, it's still a good decision. So I think, with emotional authority, it is really learning to trust the gap. It's really trust, like, that's enough, that's all I need. Love that.
I've definitely been focusing on that trusting as a key theme, and really been leaning into that. And I think this is where a lot of what you say is such a big help too, in terms of trusting ourselves, because I love how you put that, is not necessarily needing the clarity, but just trusting that we know deep down, we know, and it's trusting that is what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that this is, for me, this is the most important thing that human design gives us. It's just that ability to trust ourselves. It gives us so much specificity and permission and all of those things. But at the end of the day, if we just learn it and we don't live it and trust it, then we don't reap the benefits. And I think that that's the most important thing, is self-belief. And I feel like human design gives us that it hands it to us, but we still need to take it. We still need to be like, this is about me, not about me performing or fitting into something else or whatever it may be. So since actually, running your experiment, being in alignment, or at least experimenting with strategy, authority, profile, and everything else in your chart, how would you say that your behavior has changed? Like, what do you do differently now that you didn't do before?
A lot. One of the things, following my strategy of informing, that was something that did not come naturally. I think to most manifestors, it doesn't come naturally, because I know certainly for me, my whole life there's been a control theme there, of being controlled. And underneath, I really had that fear of, well, if I tell people what I'm going to do, they will try and control it. They will try and stop me. And so I really started learning and experimenting with that very quickly, and realizing how little resistance I ended up getting as a result of that. And so even if people didn't necessarily like what I was telling them or informing them I was going to do, they didn't stop me. And so I now am very cognizant of just continuing to find ways to inform and recognizing when I'm not informing, because it still actively takes me some thought to do it.
I love that. And I'm so the same. I think informing is that piece that it's such a big game changer, and not something that's necessarily often when you come to human design, you're like, wow, that resonates. Yeah, that's easy. Cool. I can just be like, yeah, give myself full permission to do that. Whereas informing is like, oh, I forgot again, like it's not that sort of natural habit to just fall into place. So it is that thing that I know in my life. I mean, I'm an MG, so it's part of my strategy. I've got 2 MG kids. So, it's just funny watching, like, especially my eldest, because he's a line 1 as well. So if someone isn't telling him what's going on or what the details are, like, you can just see the poor thing just flipping out, like, just tell me something. But it's a game changer. I think it's so important. I love that. So I want to talk about some of the deeper parts of the chart. I'm not sure deep is the right word, but the more detailed areas of the chart. Maybe your incarnation cross, or maybe there's one of the part of the golden path, which is the Venus sequence, the genius and the prosperity, the pearl sequence, and the activation sequence through the gene keys. Tell us a little bit about how you sort of aligned to and integrated some of these areas of your chart.
So what was really interesting to me is learning about my incarnation cross, which is the right angle cross of rulership, and recognizing so much of my career then suddenly made sense when I understood it. And I had been pulled into leadership roles right from very early on in my career. And that was before I even really saw myself as a leader. Other people had seen that in me. And so everywhere I went, I kept getting put into leadership roles. And towards the end of that corporate career that I had, I very much was taking pride in the leader that I was, and recognizing how I was different perhaps to other leaders around me. And so that was amazing, just to put those pieces together. And then as I moved into entrepreneurship, really understanding how I can become a different type of leader when I don't have big teams to manage and things anymore. And so what I've been doing now is diving deeper into just breaking that incarnation cross down, so the activation sequence, gene keys. In the last sort of year to 18 months, I've been diving a lot deeper into, and there are so many, key themes that I've pulled out. So really understanding that incarnation cross, and my conscious sun is the 22, which is all about emotions. So I talk about that emotional authority and how I'd repressed my emotions for so long. So that really was such a key. And it is still, I'm still diving in, I'm still uncovering, I'm still looking for where is the shadow playing out? How can I lean more into the gift of this? How can I keep opening my heart and revealing those emotions and allowing myself to experience them and connect with people at that heart to heart level? And there are other places that it plays, like key places in the gene keys that also plays out.
Yeah, I love that. And, I think it's so fascinating because, especially speaking to you, because there's a lot of people listening that probably want to do a similar transition, or they're thinking about it, or in the process of it. But it's beautiful just to hear your story at the other side of it. And still like, yeah, I'm still working on it. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I mean, I still listen to my gene keys all the time. Like, I had a session with Jess Babaco the other day, on my activation sequence. I mean, I've gone over and I don't know how many times, and I have this session with her just to walk through, and I'm like, holy shit, there's all this extra stuff, and it's this and it's that. And I think that that's the beauty of this work, is that as we raise our consciousness, we see more in it. If we think about maybe the gene keys specifically, it's going to be quite a high consciousness. I nearly call it a work of art, but really it is. Like, it's poetry, and it's a book, and it's a system, and it's all those things. But, the higher our consciousness goes, the more we get to access of it. So it's this ongoing journey that I think is so, so beautiful. I would love to just finish up with maybe, because a lot of our listeners are on similar trajectories to you. They're obviously not all manifestors, and the odds are that there's only, 10% of them. But we have a lot of manifestors in our community. What would the advice be? What would you want them to know? They're early in their experiment. Let's say maybe they're still a bit like, wow, there's all this stuff going on. There's lots of information. It's a little bit overwhelming. I'm definitely leaning more towards the people pleasing than the initiating. Like, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
I think a few things. Really, the biggest thing is find the space to get quiet and start listening to yourself, because I was so busy. I had such a busy life. I was working 12 to 16-hour days, had 2 kids. Anytime I had downtime, I took on more responsibility because I kept pushing myself. I had the defined root and defined will center, and I couldn't allow myself to rest. I couldn't allow myself any sort of break. And that really started changing when I started allowing and giving myself that space. And so particularly for manifestors, recognizing, we try and maybe act like sacral beings. And so finding that space to get quiet, because that's the only way you can really tune in and start hearing yourself. So you have to quieten the mind to listen to your body, and finding ways to drop into your body and really connecting to it is the first place that I would start. So the information is amazing. It can get really, really overwhelming, but just grab a couple key aspects like understanding your authority and how that works. How do you connect to your intuition? And just start experimenting with those and allowing yourself that rest and that time, and not to feel guilty for it too. Because I think particularly us as just women in general, we do feel guilty if we have families, we're giving care to other people or whatever that is. We do feel guilty at times taking that time to ourselves, but it's actually a critical part of our journey. And so taking that time to really focus on yourself, I think is so really important as well.
I love that. And I think you're spot on. I think there's so many as women, we're just so busy being busy. I was saying to someone the other day, like, one of the first things my mother, still to this day, when I speak to her on the phone or I go see her, she's like, how are you? Busy, busy, busy. And I'm like, Mom, this is my ego manifestor mother, right? Ego projector mother. Like, dude, anyway, bless her cotton socks. And one of the things that you said that I also just want to reflect back to, it's this getting out of the head and into the body. It's so important. I just taught a class last week in HDX, which is literally called From Thinking to Feeling. It's part of transformational human design, really teaching people how you actually get out of your head. My good old actions perspective, my line 3, my line 5, like, had just stepped it out for people, because I know it was one of the most challenging journeys for me is like, how do I actually do that? How do I get out of my head and into my body? And so many people they'll give you these sort of wishy-washy, oh, just go out in nature. And I mean, I say that all the time, don't get me wrong, because that's a really great one. But sometimes many of us wake up and realize that we've been thinking our feelings, we've been thinking our emotions for the longest time, instead of actually feeling them in our physical body. I know that was my, big moment where I realized that all my emotions that I was aware of were happening in my head, not in my body. So I think that is beautiful advice. So Kerrie, obviously as a part of our team, you are on the website. So if anyone wants to sign up and do an unpack with Kerrie, she's amazing. You were a part of my mastermind. You've got your own business. You do incredible things. Do you want to share a little bit about how you serve the world and what you do?
Yeah, definitely. So now I am a coach, and I focus really on helping career-driven women and mothers. And I say to navigate the dynamics of the corporate world, along with balancing that out with everything else going on in their lives, really, so they can find out who they authentically are and navigate that environment really as their authentic self and being able to use their voice. And I think this serves them because it really puts them in the driver's seat of their own career and life, instead of leaving that up to other people or, just not really living it intentionally, and helping them step into their purpose so that they truly can live this fulfilled life that they love.
I love that. And, it's shifting out of the conditioning, because again, as a woman, I was saying to someone the other day, like I was very lucky to grow up in the household I grew up in the time that I grew up in. I was like told, you can have everything you want, you can do it all. And then I continued to do it all and burn out and nearly destroy myself as a human. So I think one of the things that is just so important is it's like actually learning to step away from all of our conditioning and realizing that we are so much more conditioned than we think we're conditioned, even if we think that we have this really balanced, equal upbringing or environment now. It's like you've got to go deeper into that. So I love the work that you do. You are freaking awesome. Where can people find you, beautiful?
So I am active on Instagram at Coaching by Kerrie, and that's Kerrie, or my business and my website is liveyoursensationallife.com.
I love it. And as I said, if you want to book and unpack with Kerrie, you can go to my website. We're going to put all of those details in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, beautiful. I so appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you, but beyond what you'll ever know.
Wow. Well, thank you. I'll take that because you're an incredible human being. And I'm very grateful to have you as part of a team, as a part of our team. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I trust you got what you needed from today's episode, and I so look forward to having you on the next one. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone, for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means, get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.